when me and Arturo were both going at it, it was truly, truly dreadful. The difference in power when we were in high school. Arturo got all the benefits of lowering your standards by dating a fat girl. And I literally got all the backlash of having high standards but having no resources to cope with it. It's truly tragic the fact that Arturo literally kept the whole reputation of me being autistic. So what the devil did when he paired me up with Arturo is he basically said that this is a guy who's just as old as you with blue eyes and he's not bitching complaining. He did what was necessary and that is why you're retarded. This is why this and that. This is somebody who is literally in the exact same position as you. He used to watch cartoons, but he doesn't do it anymore. He's out getting social. He's doing this and that. When really, he's just keeping quiet and he's playing it safe. Freshman year, my mask got exposed because I was popular for dancing, but whenever somebody saw me in a roast battle, I couldn't do shit. And so literally, what that is that means you're one-dimensional. But in actuality, I'm way more multi-dimensional than Arturo. He just doesn't take a risk. And you have to understand, people who don't take risks have it better in society, but don't have it better on the inside. And eventually it's gonna leak, just like my master freshman year. It's very important that you understand the difference in power because literally what happened was this. I could have got with dime after dime freshman year if it wasn't for fucking Isaiah. You can't say, oh, don't blame other people for your problems when that was the fucking case. There was this one time where I literally tried to tell Arturo this. I'm like, yo, I get the goofiness from my dad. And I'm like, so what? My dad's a sex offender. My dad's this and that. You can't blame other people for your problems. That shit pisses me off. And then later on, when we got older, he got a phone call from his mom confessing that the guy that he used to live with and the guy that's in prison was not his dad. So he jumped to conclusions and literally he thought it wasn't true, but that's what happens when you're young and everything goes your way. He got corrected by God over and over again, but he didn't get corrected in high school. There was literally this time where I was desperate to get pussy, desperate to get this and that. So Arturo kept on spamming how he kept on making out with his girl, literally saying, man, life is so good high, but life is even better when you have sex, stuff like that. Literally doing reverse psychology, trying to act like the grass isn't greener on the other side of the field. It's like, I can be making out with a girl, I can be getting high. I can be making out with a girl when I'm high. And so I get desperate. I literally start adding girl on Facebook over and over again. Tried doing the same thing I did on MySpace, but it wasn't working. Then I finally found one, and then I finally went crazy as fuck on this one girl. And literally, so it was through a webcam, and I tried flexing on her too. Hey, last night was crazy as fuck, bro. He's like, dude, you're over fucking reacting. I made him feel uncomfortable because I was desperate. I said it in a really uncomfortable way that literally made it seem dumb. And one thing that nerds need to understand, and this is why you literally stop having to imagine sucking those titties and smacking that ass, because I did that entire thing in high school and it didn't work. I'm like, oh man, I want to eat that fat juicy ass and stuff like that. That's scared to go away every fucking time. If you keep it in your head, it's gonna leak it out. It's like, oh, I'm not saying it. That's even worse. It's because I expressed how I felt is why I beat Arturo in the end, and why I didn't have to ask for a girl with fat ass and big titties. They were already there. It was fucking crazy. So Arturo came at me like, yo, I'm sorry that I led you on, but you don't know how to enjoy that shit socially. And that's the one thing about sex you have to understand. Arturo did as an intellectual when he was with his girlfriend. He was still wrong, by the way, but it was better than me because I was desperate, because I came at him like a fucking animal. hey, last night was crazy. Yes, he showed me her teeth and everything. It's like, calm fucking down, literally. And literally, there was this one time when there was this guy named Blackjack who's getting his own video for season 2, literally, and literally he's like, Eris, are you a virgin? Back in high school, and I'm like, yeah, and he's like, Arturo's like, man, don't ask that question. And so Blackjack is all like, what's wrong with that? That's basically me asking if you like orange juice. And so basically Arturo's all like, well, if everyone else can drink orange juice and he could, and they can enjoy it socially, then it's bad. And the whole problem, when I tried to shove it down Arturo's throat, oh, I'm getting this, I'm getting that. He's like, dude, shut the fuck up, because you don't know how to enjoy it socially. You're not doing it in a way that we're all going to enjoy it. You're doing it as a self-loathing. You're doing it in the form of literally, you sound like a pig when you say it. You're not saying it with swag. You're not saying it with dismay. He might sound like an asshole when you're saying it, but at least he has self-control, and at least he's composed. And he's talking about making out with his girl like, bruh, I was kissing for an hour, instead of me being like, I was sucking on his titties until they turned red. You guys think like fucking animals, and that's why I hate nerds. I hate fake gangsters even more, but nerds literally piss me off to the fullest extent. When they finally realize what pussy is, they literally get it out of context. But at least gangsters are smooth with their delivery, but gangsters are still wrong by default. And that was the difference. Arturo was a fake gangster and I was a nerd. He's always going to surpass in society because it's not about what you know, it's who you know when it comes to that. But that's not always the case. We used to have cringy ass fucking debates. Literally, there was this time where I was showing them an AMV of Wiz Khalifa where fucking Smoker from One Piece said, "No cigars in my name." And so literally he's like, you said no cigars, and you literally put a clip of that guy with a cigar. And I'm all like, that's only because I didn't have somebody with a finger saying no. And he's all like, okay, bro, like literally, I'm gonna stop talking because whenever I try to get stuff to criticize your AMVs, you're not gonna listen and shit like that. So that's literally not a grown man technique at all. He's being nitpicky, knowing I'm an anime fan, think I'm gonna be with the shit. He thinks that I'm gonna be street smart about making AMVs, knowing I'm a fucking nerd. It was so fucking retarded, man, because Arturo kept on playing like he was a grown man, but in actuality, he was really being the biggest of little kids, because I'm trying the best I can, and he's the one holding secrets. So here was the thing, he only had that edge from going to a juvie school. If I went to the same juvie school, Arturo knows I could have pulled more holes. There was this time where, because the juvie school is so lame, and that because it's not actual high school, for their graduation, all they can have is a barbecue where we get prom. And so literally, it didn't matter because I was a nerd and I couldn't even have a date for prom. But guess what? I was so into hip-hop that if I went to a juvie school, I could have fucked any girl at that barbecue. So it comes down to the time where Blackjack and Arturo go to continuation school and they start talking about the barbecue and how many fine Mexican bitches are gonna be there. And he stops me in my tracks before I even think about it. Knowing I'm a good student, knowing that I'm not gonna do that shit again, he's all like, Ernest, you better not come to a barbecue or else I'm gonna kill you and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm in my head. I'm like, why did he say that? I wasn't even thinking about that. And God's in my head because he knows if you went to that school, you would have pulled more hoes. And he keeps on trying to flex that I don't know anything about politics, trying to stuff Illuminati conspiracy theories down my throat. And I'm all like, bruh, I'm just trying to be a nice person. I'm just trying to be a good person. I'm like, so Lily, we had this debate where Lily, I tried telling Arturo after I already somewhat made it. I didn't make it on paper. I didn't have holes on paper, but I was getting results from being a good person because I was starting to accept people for who they were. There was this gay guy at my job that wasn't flamboyant, that wasn't shoving homosexuality down my throat. And so that gay guy was literally so understanding and literally so nice to me. And literally he treated me the way I wanted to be treated. And he wasn't being like, hey, how you doing? And stuff like that. What he was doing, he was like, Eris, I'm going to need you to take care of those clothes. I'm going to need you to fold them this way and stuff like that. He came up and be like a normal person, even though he was gay. And I appreciated that. So I started appreciating people for who they were and learning that there's more than just a stereotype. And so I tell Arturo after seeing good people after good people at my job, and I try to tell Arturo, like, dude, the good guys always win. After he tried to some Illuminati theories down my throat, I'm all like, please, this is real life. The good guys always win. And so he's like, oh my God, Eris, you actually believe that? They say that so the good guys can't fight the bad guys. And the way he delivered it, I knew he was wrong, and he knew he was wrong, but he couldn't fool me because he knew that I was right. So here's what happened. This is the tragic story about me and Arturo. So what happened was this. His uncle tried to tell him over and over again, stop pretending to be a gangster. You're not really a gangster, stuff like that. And his uncle is Pakistani due to him being a foster kid. And so his mom was a drug addict. So he got with his biological aunt that married his in-law father that was basically his uncle. So his uncle-in-law was Pakistani, but his aunt was white. So here's what happened. So it was so fucking retarded because I kept on trying to tell him, but you know he's just like that Afghan gang where we used to go to school, right? He was young once too, you know. I kept on trying to tell him over and over again. If you go back to Arturo's potential, I tried telling him that when I talked to his uncle cried because he knew there was no talking sense into him. And literally just so it was so bad because Arturo even did this. He's like, yo, showing my uncle your A and B because he thinks all my friends are drug dealers and shit. And so literally, his uncle wasn't fooled by a bit, so he was showing him drop it to the clap. And so his uncle understood what I was doing, but he looked at him like, Robert, you cannot fool me. You're doing this so you don't think I know you're getting into criminal activity. It was really, really tragic because even though he did something heartfelt, even though his uncle understood what I was doing, he didn't like the way that he was treating me. And so he was against it once he's like, I know what you're doing. I've been there, done that. And the tragic story about Arturo and why I chose this thumbnail was literally because his family died. His aunt died and his uncle died. And he had to pay for the bills on his own. And the only way he got to pay for his bills was due to networking in the streets and going to temp agencies. So he thinks he's a grown man, but he's suffering inside. I know that because he knows that his shit isn't quality at all. And his shit is literally just barely there to survive. I'm sorry, but it's tragic. All the good things that his uncle tried to do for him, it literally went to waste. And his uncle died and his aunt died, and it literally pissed me off that my lesson didn't hammer through to him and he still survived. But guess what? That's what you do in this world. It's a cruel world, but it wasn't that cruel because I had the full story. So what happened is Arturo was living in a group home just like I was, but the problem was he was getting into more activity and he was getting out of it because he was white. And I kept on trying to tell Arturo that it was so detrimental to him that he can't keep this mentality forever. So I know the inside story. I know you're just getting into temp jobs. I know you barely can support rent. I know you're not stepping up your wardrobe. I know you're not doing this and that. This was a battle between the outside and the inside with me and Arturo. So basically, you can argue that I only had Instagram clout and that I wasn't paying the bills myself, and Arturo was getting it in a shitty way, shape, or form. And so basically, you can argue that I was the popular kid now at the time, that it wasn't anything, oh, being popular ain't shit now because you're an adult, and Arturo's the one really struggling. Arturo's the real one paying his bills. That don't mean shit. It's how he's paying the bills, Forrest. That's why I'm pulling tons of girls, and that's why he's still trying to get for Ariana after she stepped her game up. So I texted him, I'm like, Ariana lost hella weight. He's like, I know. He stayed the same. So it's literally a really bad debate, and literally, so it's crazy as fuck because when you look at it, this is a tragic story about why he was so hard-headed. And you know, it came to a time where I went to a mental hospital. I'm like, there was this guy who I tried to confess my life to. So here's what happened. I tried telling Arturo the greatest speech from my Uncle Jay. I tried telling him, after I roast the fuck out of him, after I proven to him that I can cap back. This is before I talked to his uncle and made his uncle cry and shunned his aunt, saying that, yo, your husband wasn't acting like this, because when I went up to his uncle, I told him Arturo owes my family money because he got found some weed from our brother. And so basically what happened was this. And so Arturo's uncle was like, how much money? I'm like, $20. And so literally that's where his aunt comes out. So you know she's wrong. And so his aunt tried to be smart, and she's all like, yo, that's Arturo's problem. Leave that between me and him. That's not you and this and that. I'm like, I know what you're doing. I know you're making excuses for him because you're using his welfare check to keep the house afloat. I kept that in my head. So instead of actually saying that and making her even more mad, I'm all like, oh, that's not what your husband said. And so his aunt thought she was smart, and she was all like, just leave me alone before I call the police. And so I walk off. Dumbass. You literally think I'm gonna stay there and literally think I'm cocky? That's what Arturo would have done. Arturo would have been like, what? Nigga, this and that? And that is the difference between me and a try-hard gangster. I know my limits. I already proven her wrong. And so she literally tried to back me up in the corner, and I'm like, okay, well, I know what to do. I'm just gonna leave. And that literally wrecked her fucking mind. So guess what happened? I got the last laugh and she died. You can try to say that she was right all you want, because the society's eyes, she's right. She's like, why are you harassing me? Arturo already established that he doesn't like you. It doesn't matter this and that. He's still the head of society. He's still ahead of you. And stuff like that. Like, on paper he is, but I know the full situation. That's basically harassment. Me doing it even in a professional way after he already established no thank you is harassment on paper, but I know the full story and I want him to live through his potential. And Lily, she's all like, no, this and that. So yeah, on paper, yeah, you can say that she could have won, but she gave me leeway because I knew I was correct. And that's what happens. That's what happens when you know the full situation on the inside out. And so it continues on when I learned from my past mistakes, and I tried to tell Arturo this. It's literally, I call him out on his bullshit, literally, that he's not really going to places, that he's mostly around block, and he has to literally rely on Dabby or a lot of the people from the juvie school to even get to even further places. The most he would do of those places is just smoke weed. I'm like, you have no life and shit. And he tried to tell me this, and what happened was this. I call him out on this bullshit, and I roast the fuck out of him while we're trying to eat some food, and he's all like, see, that's why I can't take you to great places. I'm all like, okay. He's like, why? No, I'm like, why? And he's like, because you're too loud. I'm like, oh, so all the black guys that run the trains and the Mexican bitches are loud too, right? And he's like, no. And then he starts acting autistic, like, I don't even do that for them. I even tried telling them why Illuminati conspiracy theories are full of shit. And I tried telling them about some real shit that comes from evolution. And so he's all like, yo, the world's gonna end in 2023. And literally, it's this and that. It's like, that's when a real revolution is gonna happen. That's when this and that's gonna happen. And so I'm like, I changed the subject to something really interesting. I'm like, do you notice that all the girls that are in junior high and high school are getting thicker and thicker as the years come by?
Perfect.
What's gonna happen in society is they're gonna start literally tripping over bitches more than anything. And I was right 100%. Not through MGTOW, but in the form of what's actually happening in society. I'm like, yo, these people are getting thicker. These people are getting this and that. And literally, I told him what's gonna happen is we're evolving as a species, and I didn't say it at the time, and now I realize that society is going to literally have to be forced to accept that we are animals, and we're gonna have to eventually go inside out, and we're gonna have to establish the fact that we are species, but we're gonna advance as a species because we recognize that we're animals. Like, we are based off a society that doesn't rely on us being an animal too much. We rely on us making adventures, us having opposable thumbs, us doing things with technology too much. What's gonna happen is we're eventually gonna have to realize that we're gonna have to go back to our natural state as animals, and then we're gonna have to expand to recognize where we came from instead of trying to advance without recognizing the fact that we still have hormones, that we still have this and that, because we're trying to focus too much on multidimensionality when really we still think like carnivores to a certain extent. We still have raging urge to mate, and I tried to tell them about that. I tried telling them that it's gonna get out of hand because these girls are getting too thick and these guys aren't gonna have any self-control. So what's gonna happen is society is gonna have to step up the way of thinking and accept the fact that we're part animals instead of denying it all the time. Like, oh, think outside the situation, think outside the fact that she has big ass and tits. Impossible, but don't make that everything. That's how I think now, and this is what it's really coming to. And I noticed it through cosplay. I've noticed through a whole lot of other shit that when it comes to scientific shit, we need to recognize that we have advanced as a species. But we're advancing physically, but we're not advancing mentally, because what's blocking us is that we're trying to literally pretend that we're civil, but we're resorting to rape on the side as a society. What we're doing is that we're keeping secrets from the younger generation, trying to say like it's not all about sex, it's not all about this and that, when in actuality sex is the start. Recognizing that a girl has a thick body is why she always keeps her guard up, but we're not going to be able to get past that. And that's why MGTOW exists, because we were so focused on their bodies and not everything else that literally it got to the point where we literally were not able to see through the girl's backup plan. Oh, we called it out on her bullshit, but we couldn't get the pussy because she had a backup plan, and all she has to do is like, oh, well, if you count me out, you're not gonna get this pussy. So what we failed as a society today is literally, we failed at backing up our own statements saying that we are multidimensional and that we don't treat girls like a piece of meat and that we're all intellectual, when in actuality, they're using them as toys. And so what happened is, people like me, Alpha Male Strategies, Lucario, literally have a backup plan saying that we don't care if you fuck us if you don't respect us. And that's why so many people defended Lisa and her big tits like it was pregnant, his three friends. And so Arturo literally neglected all thing about evolution, about how girls' bodies are going to get in the way of us making inventions, and how this and that, and how we're literally going to have to get smarter than we ever have before and start thinking more crafty and literally start thinking beyond the harder physical challenge that is put in front of us today. So he's all like, nope, it's gonna be 2033. the definition of arrogant, the definition this and that. He's like, nope, and he suffered from it tremendously. He told me that he got fired from his job at Tesla, had a wonderful job at Tesla, paid $26 an hour, but he got caught up because he was addicted to heroin, and like, literally, that is why they gave him the opportunity, because he doesn't know what to do with that opportunity. And I keep on trying to tell that's why the gangster ain't shit, and I keep on trying to tell Arturo that he's an intellectual, that he's wasting his potential, but it doesn't matter because he's always going to be saved by a fake friend. I was devastated when I heard that he literally tried to abuse Envy, tried to abuse the girl I gave him at Level Up Expo. It literally tore my fucking mind apart that he is this arrogant, and literally it's just so stupid. So another great example is when I went to the mental hospital, I tried telling this black lady about how I gave him one of the biggest speeches from Uncle Jay after I roasted the fuck out of him. And this is why you shouldn't believe in anime. Arturo is why I don't believe it 100%. So basically I told him this, I'm like, yo, Uncle Jay never told me the good things I was doing. He always like, hey, you piece of shit, go pick up that ghost turd. Literally, it was so fucking funny, literally. He kept on scolding me over and over again, so I kept on telling Arturo, listen, the reason why Uncle Jay doesn't tell me the good things that I do is because he'll let it get to my head. He doesn't want me to get cocky, that's why he always tells me the bad things that I'm doing, in order for me to stay on my toes. And Arturo started crying. Arturo literally, I believe that Arturo finally got on the side of good after I roasted the fuck out of him, after I showed him the streets ain't shit, but he still remained arrogant. After that beautiful speech I gave him on Uncle Jay, literally, I'm like, it's all good because it got time. And there's this thing when you're a grown man. Now, this is a grown man technique, but this doesn't mean you're a grown man. So what Itachi and what Uncle Jay used to do when I used to go through shit in high school, and I used to attack him through temper tantrums and shit, they would always used to take the hit and used to wait for it to be, and used to wait for it to get out of my system. But they would actually get hurt when it happened, so they were faking. So I would take my brother to the hospital to try to keep his ego intact. I would hurt Uncle Jay. I would do this and that back when I was a minor, back when I was younger. And so I gave him my Naruto Uzumaki speech. I'm like, if you're so mad at me, take it out on me. I'll let you hit me, just like Uncle Jay. I'll let you hit me, just like my brother. I'll let you get it out of your system, because my love will always outdo your pain. And so literally Arturo texted me that same night, you got me. I'm dumbfounded. But guess what happened the next day when I came over? So he starts crying, and this is a really tragic story. This is why you shouldn't believe anyone. This is why you don't believe in anime. Don't believe in that stupid ass speech Naruto say believe it. Even though I got him all emotional, guess what happened the next day? So basically, I got him over to his house, and he starts making me rice and eggs, because my favorite meal is eggs. And literally, so basically, I look at his tears in his eyes. He's like, you know why I came? It's because Uncle Jay didn't tell you the good things, because it'll get to your head. And it was crazy. So what happened was this. I saw some Visine after I was about to leave his house. As soon as I was about to leave his house, I tell that he was faking. What happened is he put some Visine in his eye, and he let it drop down in order to make me think that he was crying. He was crying the night before, so he kept in character, but he let me know right then and there he was faking. So after that emotional speech, I literally tried to get him to go back at girls in the mall, and that's when he pulled the thing called Arturo's manipulation. When I tried to literally get him to come out of the shell, and he still got on the bus and literally took my money. He took my money for bus, and all that Uzumaki shit was out the window. And that was a series of events that literally, even Uncle Jay backtracked on his word. My brother backtracked on his word, and so I got 5150, and they all betrayed me at the same time, doing the same. That was the devil telling me that nothing has changed. But guess what? I was on hold on when that happened. I was a full shell of when I was when it happened. If you know hold on, you can't really speak correctly. You can't really do this and that. And so my brother and all of them took advantage of the fact that I wasn't as smart as I was before I went to the hospital. And hard on was off after a while. So after I got off the hard on is when I started roasting Arturo. When I started literally playing the Cousin Fig song, where I started roasting him. But before that happened, I went to the mental hospital. And so God told me this on my speech, the real speech that really happened. God told me what really goes on in the real world. When I went to the hospital and I talked to this black girl who happened to be my nurse, and I told her what Arturo did to me. I'm like, there was this guy who I really trusted in, who I thought I finally fixed, who was really a try-hard gangster. And so like I went through this and that, and I tried telling her how I used to like Tyler Perry, about how I let go his philosophy. She's like, oh baby, when you get older, you truly gotta figure out. No, she's not full of shit. She just didn't know that Uncle Jay was full of shit, and that literally she didn't know the full story. But on the basis level, like literally, she told me the truth. She's like, when you get older, you gotta understand what he's talking about and this and that. And so she really got into a full-fledged conversation about Chris Brown. This is my nurse at the mental hospital literally telling me how Chris Brown literally mimicked Michael Jackson and how literally he was so good. And I love this black lady at the mental hospital. So I started going to Arturo. It was like, when I woke up, I thought I finally got to him. And he started making me eggs and stuff like. She's like, what? Bacon and eggs? And she's like, damn, bacon and eggs? So basically, she kept silent after I told the full story about how he still betrayed me. So in actuality, what I learned over time is he and Uncle Jay and my brother were able to fool people on paper if you don't tell this full story. And that is the heavy mask that they have. You see how she supported the Tyler Perry movie without knowing that it was Uncle Jay that was saying it, without telling whose mouth it came out of, without knowing the person? That is a very strong thing in society when you say something that people are going to back up, but they don't know it's coming from somebody who's full of shit. Like the text message with Lisa. Lisa's comeback made my side of the story look like a contradiction. But if you only read the text messages, if you don't see both the people who are text messaging, on the other side she's fat, and on the right side, literally, there's a black guy in shape telling her to fuck off. But if you read the text messages by itself, a lot of people can honestly take her side. But if they don't know the full story, they can easily be manipulated. But it didn't work out for Arturo because that whole front that he put on was not going to work after that Haldor wore it off and after I took a step with God. So God, when I was in the mental hospital, told me this. I'm like, you know how you learn how to beat these guys? What you have to do is you have to learn their game. So when I was playing basketball, God was giving me instructions and I was not shooting it in the basket, and I would rarely shoot the ball in the basket. And so literally God told me this thing. He's like, he gave the example when I was in the ARL when Livingstone was roasting the shit out of Sabo. Literally roasting, but he got ahead of himself and he started stuttering and he lost it. And so literally, so Kula Loose talks to Livingstone and he's all like, stop while you're ahead, Stone. So God tells me that in my head as an example. So what happens is this, is literally, when I shoot it in the basket, he's like, stop where you're ahead. And so he told me to shoot it a little bit more and wait till I shoot it in the basket again. And so literally, I shoot it, he's like, try doing it 3 times. And so he stopped me at 3 times, he's like, stop where you're ahead. This is how you win at life. This is what the arrow does. This is what a lot of people do. Stop where you're ahead. It's a universal tool, is what God told me. So literally, I kept on shooting it. He's like, no, I told you to stop when you're ahead. So basically when he told me to stop, it's like I started trailing, so he's like, stop when you're ahead. So after the 3, he told me to go back inside because I went back in the hospital, and the next time I got out, I was able to shoot it 5 times. He's like, nope, after 5, stop where you're ahead. That was literally one of my favorite trips to the hospital, where literally I got to talk to God, I got to talk to a black lady that was truly understanding of the situation. That was literally one of my best moments when I went to the hospital. Yes, I did have fun at some point, but guess what? There was a time in my life where God told me that I was being too reliant on the mental hospital, because even though the full story leaked out in the hospital, I needed the full story to leak out to real life. Like, I would literally tell the hospital, oh, I actually want to be here because my family is abusive. And so literally what they tried to tell me is, oh my God, like, we can't keep you here because if you understand that, you don't have a mental condition. And so literally, so what happened was this, literally, there was this Asian girl that was talking to me. She's like, don't call the police because you'll end up here. And literally, I realized that because I already had a record, but you know, what happened was this. And so I learned that over time that I couldn't go to a mental hospital anymore. So there was this time during last year where I was so fed up with literally dominating people. I was so fed up with bitches. I was so fed up with literally getting everything when I was struggling throughout my whole life to get. And now I see that everybody has it harder than me, that they have no game now. And now I'm dominating their everything. Justin, Pedro, and everybody aren't able to make me mad. And this ties heavily into Arturo, because this is the lesson that we're trying to give Arturo, that you can't fall back on what I used to fall back on. I used to go to a mental hospital and I'm like, okay, well, there's still bitches there. I know bitches that got crazy. There's still cool people there to talk to. You know, some of the people are just like Ben. You know, some of the people in the mental hospital are actually like regular people. And I was literally treating it like a hotel instead of actually what it was was for, because literally, so it got to a point where I realized, because I'm having more fun in the hospital than I am in real life, I have a problem. So it got to a point where last year, while I'm like, I'm tired of telling these kids the same thing every day and them not believing it. I'm tired of it. I actually want to go to the mental hospital so I don't have to deal with the stress. I actually want to go back to the mental hospital because I'm tired of literally everybody that should be in the mental hospital aren't. But I was too mature and I literally went past those levels too many fucking times, and I realized I can't do that anymore. But it would be a relief, but that's why God gave me the power to face my problems head on. And Arturo keeps on wearing a race to his problems, so he's always gonna have an outlet, but he's literally gonna go through shit inside every single time. And literally, so this ties heavily into Arturo's philosophy, because he keeps on running away from literally what everybody's trying to tell him, what God's trying to tell him, and I was forced to face it head on. It couldn't happen because literally I was too mature and it was so different. That's what happens when you're an adult. And my dad tried to tell me the same thing. It's like, through his actions, like, son, there's this time where I kept on running away from going to jail, and I was so good at escaping from jail that it literally got to a point where I had to turn myself in. So my dad called me from the pen after all these years for running from the pen. He's like, I'm finally tired of running away from the problem because I'm too good at it. And that's what happens when you're a grown man and you realize everybody's a little kid. So literally, there's this thing that I realized over time, like, there is no such thing as a deadbeat dad. Because who wants to literally have the mind of a father to hang out with a whole society that acts like little kids? That's why my dad always kept in contact with me, even when he was in jail. Like, dad always did this and that. And Arturo literally shares the same name as my father, and it's a really emotional video. I have to get out there that Arturo isn't what he says he is, but he keeps on trying to gas himself up, literally trying to do this and that, knowing that I surpassed him. It even got to a point when Arturo helped Raven and Neff set me up for Fanime. So what happened is, the reverse psychology after that is, when I get off of Fanime 2019, I see Arturo out of nowhere right in front of a church, and I try telling Arturo, when God tells you to do something, don't do it. And I suffered the consequence. I didn't suffer in reality. On paper, I didn't suffer the consequence, but I did suffer the consequence. I was treated like a predator throughout all those years, even though everybody knew I was a good person. That's due to people holding a grudge, but still, that's the difference between paper and real life. And Arturo abuses the paper. Arturo does this and that, and I'm really trying to talk to you guys and try to let you guys understand that it's a cruel world, and in this world, Arturo's always gonna have the edge on me, not just due to being white, but because he fits the stereotype of the gangster, and he's always gonna be in style, but he's never gonna be independent. On paper, he's independent, but in the real world, he's not. So this is the crazy thing. So there's this one song where I was showing Arturo about A&B, and E40 was all like this. What you smoking on? That damn storytell. That storytell? Yeah, nigga, purpels. When I was taking karate at the YMCA, there was literally this thing. Every single time I bought a bottle of purple, it always had something different on it. So I tried telling Arturo that he said purple. He's like, no, Eris, he said purple, like purple weed. I'm like, no, he said purple because when I was in karate classes, there's always something different on the bottle. He's like, no, he's saying purple, like purple. I'm like, no, he's saying purple. And literally, it was so fucking cringy. It's like, whatever, bruh. And like, literally, so after I got to work with E40, I realized that's not a fucking coincidence. I literally have all that experience in the YMCA, but Arturo can obviously say it's for weed. And it is for weed on paper, but it's a shout out in real life. On paper, Arturo literally said he's saying purple, like he's getting high and telling stories. You can even go back to E40's message. He's like, the art of storytelling. But the real reason why is because E40 said that specifically for me to realize that I was against something called paper, and that we're gonna have to learn how to get by that paper. We can't burn the paper because that's what gangsters do. Gangsters will burn the paper, take corporate offices, and pretend it never happened. What we have to do is we have to suffer the pain, and we're gonna have to literally have discipline when they don't, so we can run the business professionally, what they literally run through street code. And that's why I won and he didn't.